to Wind Down Wednesday. Here are your hosts, Jeffery, Tobias, Halter, and Amanda Hammett.
This is Wind Down Wednesdays, a contemporary midweek discussion on current workplace and marketplace issues with a focus on diversity, inclusion, intersectionality, and equality. And this is always best enjoyed with your favorite wind down beverage of choice. I'm Amanda Hammett, and this is my friend and colleague, Jeffery Tobias Halter.
All right, welcome to part 2 of the Wind Down Wednesday parenting panel, where we have been taking on pandemic parenting and going back in person into the office. And what do working parents want you to know as their leaders? We'll listen in to Jessie from EY and Smriti from Red Hat, and they will tell you exactly what you as a leader need to know.
And Amanda, I want to serve up to your wheelhouse this new normal. And, millennials tend to be the parents right now, even though, Xers, will have children, and obviously Zs are coming up. But, what are you hearing from your clients and colleagues about millennials and the new normal?
Yes, so millennials and the new normal. Unfortunately, I hear that term used in a very negative, those millennials way. And I'd like to just put some things out there that I've noticed. It's not just millennials who are now really in a desirous position of working from home. I have seen multiple senior leaders in the past month that have told me, you know what, if I have to go back into the office, if it is mandatory, I'm either taking a retirement package or I'm going to go somewhere else. And these are senior leaders that are doing this. These are not necessarily millennials. So I think that we need to make sure that we're not placing negative blame on one group of people. This is the entire workforce. We need to be flexible for the entire workforce. What is going to work for each individual team, like Jessie was saying, that I think that that's the ideal situation. But what I'm seeing is a lot of companies are trying to mandate from the top down. Yeah. And what works at the top level may not work at the frontline level. And so there needs to be some flexibility. Now, on the other side of that, I can see also I have concerns about my younger employees, those early in careers. If they switch over to a fully hybrid model, I have some concerns about their development. Just because there are these micro coaching and training moments that happen, at the water cooler, so to speak, or as a, more, someone who's further along in their profession might walk by and hear you talking to a client over the phone and, hey, just next time, try this or try that. Those little micro coaching moments can be pivotal in someone's career, and we're going to miss out on those. So we need to find a way to capture those moments. I don't know how it is or how it's done, but we do need to figure that out. So those are my two conflicting concerns on both sides.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, I was just going to kind of piggyback off of what you said, Amanda, which is, those micro coaching moments, and there's just being able to be in an environment where you can develop freely, especially if you're early in career. But I think also for someone, it's like a mid-career professional like myself, I think what the office provides, or what being around people provides, is just a sense of camaraderie. Yes. That it's hard to get that over the Zoom calls or like over WebEx calls, only because it's so scheduled, and then people want to get to work and they want to finish. Whereas, and you're only dealing with your team. If you're working in a cross-functional environment, you're dealing with them in a very professional cross-functional environment. There's really no safe space to make friendships or vent or maybe ask for advice in a way that is kind of beneficial to you professionally. I think the office provides those moments, which, I mean, I am 100% work from home. I love it. Like I'm fine not going back to the office, but those are the things that I personally miss. It's just those micro moments of just hanging out with people that you know and you like.
Absolutely. I could not agree with that more.
And the point I want to bring to this is back to our, ongoing dialogue around diversity, equity, and intersectionality, and everyone is having a different experience. And I think that's the really key point for companies, is there is no one new normal. And what I'm seeing is you've got one shot at this, and you really need to get it right. And the sense of urgency needs to be there. There's 11 million open jobs. The economy is coming back. I loved Amanda's point, not just millennials, but boomers. Everyone is exercising their options to say, if this isn't going to work for me, I'm going to go somewhere else. There's 2 million job openings right now on LinkedIn. And so this is where this conversation needs to shift from company policy to culture, right? Because, Jessie, I loved your EY example, and they are a trailblazer in DE&I. There's other companies that have stated policies, but the culture's not there, and it boils down to the individual manager, right? So we have a formal flex policy. Everybody can abide by this. Oh, but if that individual manager is not allowing that to happen, people are going to opt out. People are just, going to choose not to come back to the company. So we're getting down to about our last 10 minutes. We want to kind of segue into really hearing more about maybe people in your lives, the great experiences. I think it's interesting. You had to solve the childcare issue, and you were lucky enough to have mothers come in. So Jessie, I'm curious, as a single parent going through the pandemic and building these infrastructures, what would you say to other single parents to help them cope, to get through one more day, or one piece of advice you would have for them?
That's a really great question, Jeffrey. It is challenging to be a single parent, working and having young kids or kids of all ages. It's a huge challenge. I personally, when I was a parent that was married or a single parent now, I continue to struggle with, which is one thing is, gosh, asking for help. It takes a village to raise your kids. And culturally, I am Asian descent, Chinese born and raised. My parents, I migrated to the US, so culturally it's very different. We don't ask for help. We only kind of try to reach out to families. But through this process is working together, join the Facebook group of single parents and having other parents to help, rearrange, ask your neighbors for help. Ask your family to help. You cannot do this alone. I am very fortunate that I have a really great co-parenting relationship with the boy's dad. He's in IT, so he doesn't have as many calls during the day as I have in my role and work. So if I have a very important meeting or a very busy day, sometimes I'll call him and see whether I can drop the boys off at his house so that they can be there and he can take a few hours with them. And we just swap. I think we have to remain flexible and not to be afraid to ask for help. I've have friends that are also single parents, very close friends, and I have offered to help. Hey, why don't you bring your kids over? And we'll have all the kids have a little play date and they'll keep each other busy. I am not bothered by the noise in my house. So if you have something, errands to run, right? You got to get to doctor, you got to take care of certain things, or you have to go into work for whatever. I'm happy to look after your kids. And I think it's, asking for help. And also if you see your friends needing help, it's offering that help.
Yes,
Right.
offering that help. That is something that I've seen that we need to do as a community of parents. We need to be more willing to not judge, but just go in and, hey, how can I help you? What do you need? What can I do for you right now? So yeah, great point.
I want to build on that just for a second, because there's some recent McKinsey research that came out that just said women are burnt out. Women, you know what, it's been over a year and they're tired and they're opting out and they don't feel they're fulfilling themselves at work. They're not a great boss. They're not a great parent. what advice would you give women and parents in general, just to get through 1 or 2 more days and stay engaged? And Smriti, I'll go over to you.
Oh my God. I think the only thing that I would tell other women is just give yourself a break. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have perfect children. Your children don't need to get like perfect grades, be great at piano, violin. Just give yourself a break. Especially if they're younger children, I do think that the pressure that we have culturally and just societally, it's like, oh, my children are great, they're doing well in this pandemic. I would say focus on making sure that your children feel okay mentally. Like that's the only thing that I would sort of tell moms and dads is your child fine mentally, find those avenues for them to sort of let loose, play. If you're okay hanging out with other children, let them do that. But I think focusing on things like, even though it's virtual, you must get perfect grades. And even though we haven't done practice, you must be really good at this. Those kind of things really burn you out. It's unnecessary stress on yourself, on your parenting relationship as well, because you and your spouse may not have the same parenting styles. And so that's what I would say, is just give yourself a break. This is just hopefully a blip in our lives. And that as what children need to see is you thriving as a parent, you being okay mentally as a parent. It's only then that will they feel confident, less anxious. So kind of, like they say, that fill your own cup before you can go to the others to fill their buckets or cups or whatever. So I would, that would be my one piece of advice, is you don't have to be perfect, just get stuff done.
That's awesome. That's
And
awesome. Anything to add?
yeah, I think that's great. And it's about perception. And I'm working with a coach now, and she asked me a question, and I was like, that was a great question. She asked me, how often during a day do you tell yourself that you are doing a great job, or you're beautiful, or you're killing it? And I was like, I don't. She was like, well, then how often do you actually do that? I was like, I don't remember the last time I did that. I tell my children, hey, great job. Thank you for picking up. I think you did well here. I just want you to try. Or I tell my teams that, hey, thank you. I think looks great. But I forgot to give myself a pat on the back.
Yeah.
You did great. You made it through the day. That's all that counts. Everyone survived. And I think we just needed to, like Smriti said, let it go. Acknowledge that we're doing really well. And it's all about perception. I remember one of my boss shared this with me, and I never forget how he have observed this. I was going through my divorce, and I told him, I don't think I'm doing so well. I don't think I'm getting things done. And he said, that is your perception, because we did not notice a difference. So you need to take more time for yourself, and don't kill yourself to get to the 110%. When you can give us 80, we'll take 80. When you give us 110, we'll take 110. But not to be afraid to take more time for yourself and take care of what you need to take care of. It's your perception that you're not doing well. From where I sit, you're not doing well. You're still like killing it. And that I remember very clearly from him. And that was a huge compliment, and also a confidence booster. So I would say, give yourself a pat on the back. You're doing great. Trust me, nobody noticed. Something's not working. It's only you. So you're doing great. Keep going.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Amanda?
For me, I actually started being very vigilant on two things. I've had a off and on relationship with meditating. I'm a 5 a.m. riser, which Jeff just cringes when I say.
I know, you drive me crazy.
So I get up and I meditate, and then I go work out. But I'm off and on. But I noticed I was feeling very burned out during the early days of the pandemic. I was stressed. I have employees to think about. I have their families to think about, and I was feeling it. And so I started getting back into meditation. And then I started noticing that all of my meetings were Zoom or WebEx or Microsoft Teams or Skype, well, not anymore, but anyway. And it seemed more exhausting to me, because I feed off of the energy in the room of other people, and I wasn't getting the same. So I was more exhausted. By the time 5 o'clock came around, I just wanted to just pass out. So I recognized that I needed to start taking 30 minutes at 5 o'clock or whenever my last call wrapped up, and just shut my door in my bedroom and read. And it can't be a business book. It can be anything that's going to make my brain, start spinning. It has to be, something where I really don't have to think, but I just need to go into my room and I just need to do this. It just needs to shut my mind off. And once I started doing that, I recognized that not only was I a better leader, I was also a better parent, and I was also a better partner in all things. And so I was just taking those 30-minute nuggets of time for myself, saved me really through this pandemic.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So as we start to wrap up, I want to close out with really moving to action. And what do we do about this? And so, this is for all of you. What is one thing companies need to stop doing tomorrow? And what is one thing companies need to either start or double down on and do more of? So who'd like to start with that?
Well, I will go first.
Go, Amanda.
So I think that what I'm seeing across the board with all of the companies I work with and all the companies that I'm researching currently is they need to stop with the top-down decision-making for how we're going to manage this coming back to the office. That needs to stop. If the policy really needs to be everybody makes their own decisions, team to team. The other thing that I would like to see more of, and I think Jessie touched on this earlier, is I would like for us to continue the focus on burnout, mental health. How can we support employees holistically versus production? Numbers is all we care about, because I think we've learned that the whole employee is better than what you're going to get out as a burned out employee.
Yeah, that's great. So Jessie or Smriti?
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I agree with the top-down policy that companies are just not in a position right now to issue those mandates asking their workforces to return to work. So I think a top-down policy may not be that beneficial. And on the other side of it, I think companies need to take a more proactive approach to providing support to working parents, whether that is either tying up with daycares or children care center to provide those backup care options for children or even for adults that may need extra help. They need to take a more proactive approach towards that, because how are you going to keep women engaged and in the workforce if working mothers don't have the support that they need from, from where they're spending the most time of the day? Like I spend like almost 8 or 10 hours a day at work. And if I don't get support from my work to carry out my work, like why would I be 100% productive, right? So that's something that companies need to think of. No top-down policies, or like be very mindful of that. And the second thing is having those parental programs to support working parents, especially working mothers.
Great. Jessie?
My stop doing is stop thinking going back to the old way. That is gone. That ship has sailed. I think everyone, like personally or companies, really have to stop thinking that things would go back to where they were. It's just never going to happen, whether it's work or whether it's how to interact with their own customers and stakeholders. I would suggest like all companies and everyone, including me, to start having more conversations or continue having those conversations about what works and what doesn't work, and really understand from all levels, all areas, also cultural differences, right? People from a different region, if you're working for a global company, we experience this very differently than people in the US where we're sitting today. So I think it's appreciating, acknowledging, and really learning how to make it work and continue to grow and start bringing everyone, like Amanda said, bringing your whole self to work. How can we enable and champion our employees to bring their whole self to work, and that includes their families, who's been our co-workers for the past year and a half or so. Continue to let them come into work, right? Appreciate, and I wanted parents to feel okay. Your kids are your coworkers, and they should see what you do, because that's what they will
Love
be
that.
doing when they grow up.
I love that.
Great coworkers.
They're your coworkers. And I'm going to chime in on this one. I think companies need to just stop using the word working mother. There's a lot of research around the negative connotations. It's rare that someone says, well, he's a working dad, and
Yeah.
all the connotations, like,
Mhm.
I love Smriti, the way you were always using working parent. And so if we can just shift this dynamic and take that word and all the negativity that corporations see in working mom and shift that to working parents, I think that could be huge. I think they need to start new employee resource groups around young parents. There are so many challenges, and where are you going to build this village? And we know there's the traditional ERGs that are in most companies. Very few companies have a new parents ERG, and I think that could be one thing that we could start with. So as we start to wrap up, I want to share a quick story that you may find humorous. And this was pre-pandemic. And I was invited to a women's conference. I was one of the speakers, but Brene Brown was the keynote. Everybody knows Brene, and she's an amazing keynote. And the room was picture 500 C-level, high-level women. And Brene's talking about, so as you got ready to come to the meeting today, did you put little Post-it notes on your admin's office wall? And did you call your admin on the way to the airplane? And did you call your admin as soon as you landed to check up on them? And of course, the women said, no, we've got great staff. We trust them. And then Brene said, how many of you have done this with your husband or your significant other, where you leave notes for them? You make sure that there's food in the refrigerator and that the laundry is done, and you call them 9 times while they're traveling. And of course, all of the women laughed and said, they are all guilty of this. And I'll tell you, as I heard this story, what went through my mind as a man was, oh my God, the last thing I want to do is when you call to check in, I have to utter the words, I've killed the children. I forgot to feed them. Oh my God, Jenny went to work to play in a dirty soccer uniform and she died. Men don't want to kill your children, right? But you've got to stop coddling us. We're going to feed them. They're going to get their homework done. They're going to go to school. And as we return to a new normal and people are getting on airplanes again, just stop coddling, but also realize we might do things a little differently than you do. And pizza is actually a pretty good meal 3 days in a row for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, okay? So with that, this has been an absolute pleasure. This is a topic we're going to continue to revisit as we go into, I'm not even going to use the word anymore, Amanda, the new normal. We're going to call it work today. So I just want to close by thanking you all. And, one last word, if you could give one last word to help people get through this and see the light on the other end, what would that be? So Jessie, you're shaking your head. What would that be?
Take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. I'll take a 5-word answer. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's awesome.
Yeah, and I would say done is better than perfect.
Love that. So Amanda, bring us home.
Well, gratitude. I'm thankful for everybody in my life that has made this pandemic possible to get through this pandemic. So I'm incredibly grateful to everyone. And I'm grateful to all of you on the screen with me today. This has been a really fantastic conversation, and I have truly, truly enjoyed it. And I want to thank Jeff for being the guide through this one.
So, well, thank you for that. And, it is interesting having two millennial children, yes, and watching the struggles that they have. This topic is actually very near and dear to my heart. I'm seeing firsthand the day-to-day decisions that they've got to make, and I'm doing everything in my power to talk to corporations and senior leaders. Amanda, I know you are, and I know Jessie and Smriti, you are too. So thank you for your time, and thank you for coming on. I know how busy you are, and so we're going to let you get back to your days. So thank you all for joining us for Wind Down Wednesday.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.
I'm Jeffery Tobias Halter, and thank you for listening to Wind Down Wednesday this week.
Thank you for listening to Wind Down Wednesday with Amanda Hammett and Jeffrey Tobias Halter. You can find